welcome back, everybody, into another episode of Rivals Runback off the conclusion of Week 4. My name is Righteous. Joining with me is CB the Barbarian, coming from a deep corner of wherever he's at. Very dark over where CB is. CB, how you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I always drown people out with the brightness over here, so we're switching it up. We'll see how it goes.
How many times is CB going to say? I guess you have a meow counter. So we'll have
That
to
ain't me.
see. That ain't okay. All right. Well, put one on the board for me, I guess. We're gonna do a quick week recap, our final week of interconference, interdivision games, and then of course we'll jump into the power rankings, which is why everybody is here. Um, kind of a one-sided week once again for
Kinda.
everybody not named the Patriots.
Yeah, it was. I think was it the first week we had 4 2-0s? I think so. So maybe
Yes.
the
Yep.
quickest week, and yeah, my division with one win, 1 out of 4 is not bad. It could be worse.
Yeah, I mean, you started the split off like like one and three, and you ended at 1 and 3. So, I guess some nice bookends. Um, do we just want to go top down from the whatchamacallit?
Yeah,
The
schedule.
sheet? Yeah. Okay, so JRBB taking on Omega Gaming. Omega Gaming picks up a quick 2-0. I was concerned about this JRBB team coming into the split. I didn't have them going winless through 4 weeks, but
Yeah,
I will say it's been a tough go for the Broadside Buccaneers.
yeah. The first bright side is they showed up for the match.
True.
So no FF this week. Uh, and I felt like, if my memory serves me, wherever their game is at, first game was close, right? I don't know why I didn't pull it open, but I'll find it eventually.
Um,
One of the two
it,
were
it
really
went
close that looked like um, they had a
it
decent
went 30
chance.
minutes. Yeah, it looked like it was okay for the most part.
Yeah, there
Um,
we go. Sorry. So sub 80 carry. Uh, the support
mhm.
finally got to play support. And the starting top laner was back, just had a name change. So 4 out of 5 starters got to play, and game one looked pretty close, I guess. Maybe OG was just checking some of the rest off from the last week loss, and then game two turned it on, and it was about how we expected.
Yeah, I mean the first game we could call it close. It was 30 minutes. You know, Omega was playing a comp that had Ornn Victor Mundo, so they were kind of scaling. Granted, EX the sub 80 carry, like you said, kind of the only scaling champion for JRBB in that game one, and then game two, like you said, pretty one-sided. Nightmare going off 10-4 and 7 on the Jinx. Ended up 3K over the counter pick, which was that Caitlyn. Is this just kind of we'll just show up in the last week and have some fun, or I mean, what's the I mean, because they're BB, they could technically still make playoffs.
Yeah. So it's they count week 4 as a scrim week because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
were just hoping that um, they still had a chance because obviously they didn't know how the other teams would do on whether or not
Mm-hmm.
Orcas and Kachow would get some wins and knock JRBB out of playoffs. But those other two teams only have one win, so JRBB is still technically in the running for playoffs.
See how they do. I think for Omega, it was a nice bounce back performance after kind of getting thoroughly dismantled against the Patriots. They um, do the same against a lesser opponent. Kind of the result we were all expecting, a 2-0 for them. Moving on to Kachow Esports versus Braum Lives Matter. This is like one of the ones where you could have looked at it and said, I mean, Kachow had a nice week the previous week. BLM, they've they've had a couple of 3-game series so far in split two, so maybe this is the one they get upset, but it didn't go that way.
Yeah, I might have got a little too overhyped about the Kachow new lineup. Uh, got brought back down to reality. Now maybe Kachow's new lineup is still solid, and BLM really is just the best team in the league. Uh, that we'll say is to be determined. But yeah, I had some high hopes. Obviously, game one, kind of like the JRBB series, looked like it was close for a little bit. Was a longer game, um, just over the 30-minute mark, and then game two, just around the 26.5-minute mark, a little bit, maybe not so close game, but I don't know. We'll see. Just like JRBB, they have their playoff hopes right on week 5. So BLM riding that undefeated match record. We'll see as they have one of the toughest opponents next week.
Somebody that played in that series should confirm in that game one. It looked like Ray went mid, Kittens went top, unless that was a top lane Victor. Um, Either way, kind of an interesting draft in game one from Kachow. Not a lot of CC. Actually, the only form of CC was Poppy, and then I guess the gravity field from Victor. I'm a firm believer if you're gonna draft a comp that has no CC, you're basically playing as if you're gonna win the first 15 minutes. Otherwise, in team fights, it's just so hard to play. But they kept it close. 30 minutes, like you said, and then game two. Um, I don't know. Neon Star's been putting in work with Tiny Fist of Fury. Draken Rich has been consistent as always, but when you get a 7-2-4 performance out of Kama and a 6-2-14 out of I'm Stealthy as well, not to say that they haven't been pulling their weight, it's just when the whole team is popping off like that, BLM, of course, is going to be a tough team to beat. Um, BLM, their last regular season test next week, have a chance to go undefeated for a team that was written off before the season.
Yeah,
They might be the only ones to go deathless, go lossless in this split.
yeah. We'll see. It is for that first seed, which is a bye. So if they lose, they will drop down to second seed. Um, I don't think they can't drop to third, right? So playing for that
Mhm.
first or second seed, and of course the bragging rights to go undefeated. So
Yeah.
we shall see.
All right. Orcas and Juicebox Gang was streamed by Invicta, right? Is that
Yep.
the streaming name? I didn't get a chance to watch the games. However, it was not the result I was expecting heading into this one. I thought it would have been a close series. I didn't know who was going to win. I didn't think it would be 2-0 though. It looked like it was a long series, about 70 minutes of game time between two games. Juicebox Gang pulls it out, and Orcas is left wondering what the heck happened.
Yeah, the game two. I feel like the aftermatch looks closer than it was. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I caught portions of it. Um, I mean, there were team fights where I think Stank on the Twitch just like wasn't touched at all. Um, so the top duo for Orcas looked fairly decent. But the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the team, it was just kind of a rough showing. And I agree, I didn't. I mean, obviously biased. Maybe I had Orcas either way, but I did expect it to be either a close 2 games or, if not, a 3-game series. But um, Juicebox Gang did swap their jungle and support, so we'll see
Mm-hmm.
if they ride that same lineup in week 5 or not. We'll have to see.
Speaking of swapping, I believe this is 3 straight weeks with a different jungler for Orcas. I think this was Gabriel Leo's first time playing jungle for them. Previously, that was their top, if
I
I'm not
think
mistaken.
so, because their sub that came in was a top laner, or is a top
Um,
laner. So he went top, and then Gabriel jumped down the jungle and played pretty well jungle. So
so that might be a troubling trend for a team that still has full control of their playoff destiny. If they pull off an upset against Patriots, they would find themselves cemented into playoffs. It's tough when you're playing an organized play and someone who most teams look to as like a tempo setter, a shot caller. somebody that you want to lean to and listen to for objectives. The fact that that's three different players through 3 weeks, I don't know if that's by design or if they're just having some roster issues. That's something that we'll have to keep our eyes out on coming into this final week. Last but not least, Patriots versus Elysium. That's a game that I did catch a little bit of. And once again, on the theme of week 4, not the result I was thinking of coming into this one. I thought it'd be a closer series. It was not.
Yeah, definitely one of those first ones I had on the schedule. As far as circling, kind of the rematch thing. Obviously, not a full rematch. Both teams having at least one different player. Um, but did expect it to be a lot closer. I think the game one. I think really both games. The early game was actually decently close. Um, maybe depending on who you ask, they might disagree, but it
Mm-hmm.
looked like it was pretty close there for a good probably 15 minutes both games, and then Patriots just took it away. So the second half of both games, I don't know. It was a mix, I think, of Patriots really showing how good their comps and their macro were. And then Elysium was kind of all over the board. They had some interesting comps, a little bit of spiciness. The Ambessa kind of caught us off guard as far as where it went. Um, and then just, yeah, I don't know. That's tough showing. The Bard, of course, was that spicy pick that I like to see. Definitely wasn't the Bard's fault, but there were some ults that were a little questionable. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but overall, there were. I mean, Salo popped off that game 2, game
Yeah,
1 of those
game
2.
one.
I think I labeled them wrong,
On
but
the Syndra.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and it's a interesting trend. Talking about these last two matches, both Braum Lives Matter and the Patriots, two teams that have played with each other in different iterations for quite some time, all the way back to Rivals time in LXC against Braum Lives Matter. And it seems like in these like mid to late game situations, the teams that have, I guess, more reps or more playing experience with their teammates seem to do better in those situations. I don't know if it's them just having a better understanding of macro or the fact that because they're on the same page, even if they're making wrong calls or like questionable calls, they know exactly how they're trying to play these situations. It took a little bit for Death Knight and Intelligence, through split 1 into split 2 to like find their footing, but they're quickly becoming one of the better ball lane duos of the league. Sailor's always been a really good solo laner, and now that they're putting it together, their one blip was against BLM. It was an upset back then, but now it might be a finals preview that we had all the way back in week 1. It's just something to note that these teams that have are being put together before seasons start. They seem to be struggling the later games go.
yeah, and it's. I mean, we're gonna see obviously who plays well in playoffs and who wins and whatnot. It's
Yeah,
gonna be interesting of how the team points versus how well teams do. That correlates. Obviously, that wasn't really the case last split. BLM being the number 1 team right now, and Patriots, right next to them. I don't think either one of those teams are maxed out as far as points. So I don't know.
yeah,
We'll see how this split shakes out, and whether or not it's the teams that focus on hitting that 50-point mark, and or having a really really high pointed player on their team, like a 14 or 15 pointer. Whether or not that's actually a good strategy or not.
we'll have to see. Indeed, do you want to look at the standings real quick? Because I also offer
Yeah.
a preview for next week, and then we'll go into player rankings. Um, so some interesting things to note when it comes to the standings. Braum Lives Matter, despite being uh, undefeated, don't have the number 1 seed locked up. If Omega beats them in the 5th and final week, Omega would take first seed, BLM second. Patriots, on the other hand, do have their seeding locked up. Even if they lose, they'll end up with a better match record regardless. CB, it's time to talk about it. What happened in your division?
Uh, Orcas have been letting me down.
True.
Had some really high hopes, high expectations. I thought for sure they would be a locked in top 3 team. Uh, Obviously they're shown as number 2 here, which if you could close one of your eyes, maybe that sounds like it's a good thing. But I mean, the 1-3 record, they just look really hot or really cold. Obviously, their destiny's in their own hands, but Orcas is the one that, looking back, is the one maybe I should not have picked. I don't know. I don't know. Kachow, that one I guess obviously was a later pick. Kachow JRBB was picked over BLM. Looks super silly now. Now that BLM's
Yeah.
undefeated. Uh,
Yeah.
my excuse, kind of, or whatever you want to call it, is the community also thought BLM was the last place team going into preseason, so I blame everybody. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, obviously, hindsight 2020, maybe should have slid BLM, put some more respect on BLM, and maybe swapped Orcas with who'd you take? You took OG, so it would have been ELY. That I guess I should have taken ELY over Orcas. So
Yeah. It happens. It happens. But those are your division standings. Of course, the 1 seeds will play the 2 seeds in this final regular season week. 3 seeds will play the 4. And for a lot of these teams, it's coming to be a play-in game. Like we said, JRBB playoff hopes still alive despite being winless through the first 4 weeks. Um, Over in the Righteous Division, it's becoming a seeding play-in game. OG does have their spot locked up. However, with a win, they could leapfrog BLM into that number 1 seed. Elysium and JBG are playing for their playoff hopes in a play-in game. So it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be interesting to see how the regular season shakes out at the very end because every one of these teams that you see on your screen has a chance of making playoffs, which is fun. Um, it's not something that you usually see in amateur. I feel like the bottom of the barrel teams would have been eliminated by now, but just the way that the divisions shook out, um, every single team has a chance of making it. So very unique in that regard.
I will say, depending on how all the games go, I guess, especially on your side, JBG and or Elysium could jump up into the second seed spot. If OG loses 0-2 to BLM, so that division's kind of all up in the air. Uh, I guess I mean I could type it out later, but or I could just kind of clarify how my division would shake out uh, in that circle of death scenario. Um, cool, yeah, okay. Uh,
Mhm.
so in the very very unique scenario where Patriots is it what Patriots beat Orcas 2-0 and
Mhm.
JRBB beats Kachow 2-1,
Mhm.
there will be a circular tie-ish, if you will, where JRBB would have the head-to-head over Kachow. Kachow would have the game record over Orcas. Orcas would have the game record over JRBB. And everybody's like, who the hell gets 2 and 3? Uh, so here's the somewhat clearish way I can explain it. If all three of those teams are 1-4, and they're all essentially tied at that point for second or fourth, depending on how you look at it, all three of those teams are tied. The only head-to-head match would have been JRBB versus Kachow. With, in this scenario, if JRBB beats Kachow 2-1, JRBB would jump up into that second spot because they are the only ones with a head-to-head, locking in that second place spot. Then it falls down to Orcas versus Kachow, in which they don't have a head-to-head against each other. They would go to game record, and in that scenario, Kachow would have the better game record. So Kachow would get third. Orcas would be out. So
Yep.
that's somewhat clearish way. Of course, multiple things have to happen. Best way for Orcas to avoid that is to take at least one game off the Patriots, and or hope that Kachow wins against JRBB. So
Yeah, which remains a very uh I wouldn't say likely possibility, but if I was a betting man, I don't know if anybody would be putting money on JRBB right now, but We just wanted to address that. So there are some unique circumstances heading into this last week, but everything will shake out as it is intended to be. We got time to do a first set of player rankings, or we need to throw it to a break?
Oh yeah, let's do player rankings.
All right.
Who's it gonna be though?
All right, chat. Fast fingers. What position is going first for the player rankings? I have my this week's rankings pulled up. We're ready to go. Mira's BK's top is what he says. So we will do top.
Yeah, my computer's thinking about doing
Pulling him up.
something. No, I can pull it up, but for whatever reason, every stream my computer just wants to get crazy. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I think we're chilling. Okay. Top lane it is.
Okay. Pull up our current rankings. Maybe. Okay. So last week Pandorum was on this list because of their FF. This week Walk Warlock takes the 8th spot. No change. JRBB top laners coming in number 8. Number 7 was Dude Caleb last week and is still number 7 this week. Here's where the changes begin. 6 Ray all the way down from number 3. Big News remains the same at 5. Mango remains the same at 4. Narva jumps up to 3. Previously, Orca's top laner was Gabriel Leo, slotted in at the 6th position. Kama at 2 remains the same, and BK's at 1 remains the same. So, not very many changes except for the Orcas and Kachao swapping places.
Yeah, there are. I mean, once again, there are a few ones that could definitely make the argument to flip flop. Narva, of course, it being coming in as a sub, it's always tough to rank. Their team lost, so you might make the argument of how do you, someone comes in as a sub and they lost, how they're so high, but he was one of the few bright spots of their team. Watching their game, so he looked really good as far as individual performance. Of course, you prefer that to contribute to an actual team win, but these are player rankings, so Narva gets the nod there. The 4-5 spot, it flip-flopped back and forth a couple times before landing on this 4-5. They're pretty much tied in my mind. I think Mango's Renekton looked pretty solid. He had some decent help from Romeo ganks, but looked pretty solid on the Renekton. The Mbessa was kind of just a non-factor in their game this week. And then big news, they took the 2-0 win. Trying to think of who he played.
They got Darius game 2, which is crazy.
Yeah, so it was the Ornn that looked like it was okay, you got that win, but no, he played Ornn Sion, right? Am I tripping? Ornn Sion.
Yeah, he played Ornn Sion. You're right.
No, Sion looked really good. That's why I had big news ahead of Mango. But then I thought, okay, this week they played a common denominator against BKs, and I think Mango looked a little bit better, but you can make the argument 4-5 could go either way. Of course, Ray is the big faller. Looked really good last week. Maybe it was an overreaction to ranking Ray too high, but did look really good last week. This week, a little bit of a tougher showing.
Yeah, it's weird too, because unless someone can confirm, one of those games I think was mid. Didn't do very well there either, but it's tough when you get a 1 game sample size of both.
Yeah, true. Dude, Caleb, I mean, their team picked up the 2-0 win. Could definitely make the argument that he can move up the list just by sake of their team playing well. But this is team rankings. He did look good on the Ornn. There's a bunch of Ornns this week. Looked solid on the Ornn. Ornn staple champ, and then once again on tank duty with the Ornn Cho'Gath. Some good damage on the Cho'Gath, but I just felt like
Cho'Gath looked a little rough.
I think Narva looked good that series. So.
Yeah, Cho'Gath looked a little rough. So, yeah, I mean, dude, Caleb's not asked to 1v9 hard carry from the top lane. It's not like you're locking in Rumble, Aatrox, Renekton. It's, lock me Ornn, lock me Cho'Gath, lock me some weak side William champion, which kind of makes it hard to gain individual recognition. But he's playing his part in his team's wins. I'm okay with this list. The big question mark for me remains Kama versus BK's. BK's, of course, lost against Problem Lives Matter, but that was Alcoholic. The
Mm-hmm.
only time we've seen Alcoholic was in week one. So I'm curious to see if we ever get a rematch, how this shakes up. Because it's two people that have like very distinct play styles. If you watch BK's from split one to split two, it's like, okay, I'm playing sides. Yeah, I'll be there at team fights, but like I am trying to hit towers and explode the Nexus. Kama, I think, is a little bit more um, team oriented. Not that he can't play sides. It just seems like he's locking in things that are more like, okay, we're gonna show up for 5v5s, which BLM has done incredibly well. Is fight around objectives, and I'm gonna make my presence felt that way. So it'll be interesting to see if they ever do meet, kind of which style will prevail.
Yeah, yeah. We shall see potential finals. If it depends on if you ask those two teams, they'll probably say so. You can make maybe the argument 1-2 could flip because of who won in week one, but yeah, like you mentioned, that's not who actually played. So 1-2, the gap between 1-2, I think is really really close.
Yeah.
4-5 is really close, and then like 6 and 7 is pretty close. So um, there you have it. There's your top laners.
Okay. All right. We got time for another position.
Yep.
Poodle did say support, but that was while we were talking about top. So there's a chance that somebody might come in and steal it if they say another position. Otherwise, we might just default to support.
What's it gonna be? What's it gonna be?
I'll give you guys 5 slow seconds. All right. Stank says ADC. Sorry, Poodle. This is an active chat zone.
We
Pull up
got
my
last
ADC
week's.
rankings here. Yep. All righty. Bottom lane rankings after week 4. Diablo Fox was number 8. Granted EX stays at number 8 for their team. Riley Sauce remains consistent at 7. Redface Beast drops from 5 to 6. Nightmare Flip Flops from 6 to 5. Macho falls from 2 to 4. Intelligence remains the same for the Patriots. However, it was Nike Dragon last week at 3. Stank rises from 4 to 2. And Neon Sword stays at the top, remains the king of bottom lane for now, number 1.
Yeah, this was another one. At least kind of maybe the middle of the pack was the tougher spot for this one. Everyone else felt decent. JRBB, unfortunately, is kind of just a given. Winless, even in games, so um, likely, naturally, a lot of their roles will be at the bottom. So Granted X coming in, going to stay at that 8th spot. Riley Sauce, who... Did Riley get most underrated last split? I don't remember. At least was in the running for it.
I believe he did.
And it's weird seeing some Elysian people so low on the list. Riley this week, I mean, the Jinx looked okay. I thought like when we were streaming it that Jinx was kind of be the win con, but the Sivir was able to play super safe, so the Jinx did okay. Just kind of really a non-factor in like the late game team fights and whatnot. And then if I can find the other one.
Ezreal did not.
Ezreal, yeah,
do
Ezreal
well.
had a donut, so that was a tough one. So he's gonna
How's it
fall
dead?
down to 7. Redface Beast has actually, I mean 6 maybe feels low in a way, but I do think that Redface Beast has actually had a decent split, especially for
Yeah.
being what I think the lowest AD carry, as far as solo
It
queue
kind of had
ranks.
a stinker on Tristana 373, but you kind of brought it back with that Zaya performance.
Yeah, I think the Tristana one's one of the main reasons that Redface Beast fell a spot. I think almost got out damaged by the what was it, the Blitzcrank, right?
Yeah.
So that was good. That was kind of a tough one. Obviously, game state and whatnot has stuff to do with that. But whenever the Blitzcrank almost out damages you, you likely you're gonna fall a spot. So especially with the team loss, we're gonna fall to 6. Nightmare, who I've seen play a decent amount of AP carries, where I keep losing the OG games, looked good on the. No, I'm tripping. The Jinx. The Jinx looks solid paired with the Nami, a little bit different than other Jinx that we saw this week. And the Varus looked okay. Kind of in the middle of this pack. You could say 4-5 could be swapped. I wouldn't necessarily disagree with you. But 5 is where Nightmare is going to fall this week.
Yeah. I saw sites like, oh, how is intelligence still? How did he get passed up by Stank? Stank had himself a week, man. Intelligence had a very strong week in his own right. Stank went out what 22, 4, and 14 across 2 games. Led his team in damage each time. I just it's one of those things, dude. I keep talking. We've talked about it probably like two weeks in a row now. This will be the third week. Is like Stank. Is he playing to win or is he playing for stats? That's just my question. Because, and it could be that his team is just throwing him around. But part of this, and we saw it a little bit with EV last split, is like teams will fight and you'll see their 80 carry just farming minions in mid lane.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what's happening with Stank, but it is kind of questionable the fact that like he's putting up such high KD numbers, he's doing so much damage, but his team is still losing. Now this did come in a win, of course, so maybe they've turned it around. Maybe they're like, oh, we should fight around our Fed 80 carry. Maybe that was what was holding them back. But you know, as of right now, this is an anomaly because he's been doing this week in and week out. Just this time, it came with a win.
Yeah. I mean, in the parts of the series that I did catch, I mean, Stank was a large factor as why they
Yeah.
won the game and the team fights. Eli agreed, played also super well. I think there's a decent gap from the top 3, like to the 4, 5, 6. So Eli's definitely in that top 3 category. But the way Patriots are constructed, they have other avenues to win. As far as like other people can carry. You saw that in the game 2, in the Patriots versus Elysium, and so not as much pressure on Eli to play. Get all the kills. Like it seems like maybe Stank has to for their team to pick up some wins. And so that's why Stank's individual performance is gonna shine that much more. And then not to overshadow Neon, still sitting at number 1. It'll be interesting to see how they fare this week against Omega. But if you keep playing well and you keep winning, it's going to be tough for Neon to drop from that number 1 spot. Looked good again in week 4.
All right, so we're going to throw it to a quick break. When we are back, we'll be into the rest of the player power rankings and then the team. Stick around. right, chat. Let us know. You got, what do we got left? Support, mid, and top to go.
Support, mid, and jungle.
Jungle. Yeah, that's right. We did top. Support, mid, or jungle. Who is next?
Bum, 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 bum.
We'll just go support. All right. Poodle said, "Did I miss support?" No, you did not. We'll do support. That'll be our. All right. Nick with the win
Best
also
roll.
says support.
Best roll, some say.
Best roll, some say. Some be saying. All right. Common theme for these power rankings. JRBB coming in at number 8. Sapphire Gem was number 8 last week. The Rogue Gorilla stays the same at 7. 6 was Sabi, both last week and this week. Adrian Legitness falls from number 3 last week to 5 this week. Jonakis, a new face to support for this split, is at 4. Last week was Tyler Durden at 4, so the team remains the same. Poodle rises up to number 3 from 5. Death Knight remains the same at 2. And Tiny Fist Fury, much like his bot lane compadre, remains number 1 2 weeks in a row. Out of all the lists that we have done or ever done, I think this is, and I mean this in the best of ways, probably the most boring, only because it's just like these are basically the standings, like like uh, this is like,
Okay,
I guess
okay.
just kind of what you expect, like this is basically peanut butter and jelly, like it's just, you know
I'll say
this is kind of what you're looking.
maybe at least from last week to this week. Sure, yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah,
the tough one maybe is, correct me if I'm wrong, our uh, split one support all rivals player dropping all the way
yeah.
to 7.
Number 7.
So that's
He was,
that's
I
kind
mean, there were 7 last week, but
not true. I just meant
yeah,
overall as far as
yeah, it's been rough for Rogue Gorilla and Riley Sauce. They had so much success last split. The split has not come quite the same way.
yeah. So JRBB at 8, unfortunately, just nature of that's just the cumulative weeks and overall your team success. So 8 doesn't seem too crazy. 7 Rogue Gorilla, sure back to back weeks, but it's just overall seems weird. Uh, Played fine on the Milio, the Bard. I love the spiciness. I think there were some ults that maybe favored the Patriots, but that's kind of how it goes when you play Bard sometimes. So probably just beating that dead horse too much. Dropping to 7 just feels bad overall. Savvy at 6. Savvy? Yeah. I think I ask that every time. Staying kind of in this middle to bottom-ish tier. Pulled out the Blitz crank again. Almost out damage ready carry. Enough to stay out
Which
of the bottom 2. Well, the
we
game
gotta
state
talk
was
about the
tough.
Blitzcrank. Savvy's locked in a couple times and it has not resulted in great success. It might be time to put that one away. Um, but the karma looked really good.
True. And I think Blitzcrank itself really isn't playing terrible. I think maybe their team isn't constructed for a Blitzcrank. Thoughts on that? I don't know. Just because you have a
Here's
decent AD
here's
carry,
my
but
my thinking of
less
the
aggressive.
Blitzcrank. The Blitzcrank only is effective when you are threatening to land the Q or you actually land the Q. If you miss the Q, you are no longer a champion. You're just a walking minion. So, like, it's tough because there's so much inherent power and, like, yeah, if a Blitzcrank lands a Q on a priority carry or like finds a pick, it is very powerful. It's just been like it has not resulted in success for the Orcas, and if it's continuing to not do that, I think you just gotta, like, it's not for us.
True, 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 true. Uh, Adrian Legitness, I think, played jungle a couple weeks ago. Played support back-to-back weeks now. The team maybe overall looked rough. I don't think I mean, you can't. It's tough to blame a game on like an enchanter. So I won't put it on the Lulu that they lost. But when your AD carry goes 1-3 on a hard scaling AD carry, Lulu essentially is a non-factor in that game. And then the Nautilus, you could say, looked fine. Just a rough game state maybe. So gonna stay in the middle of the pack here. Jonicus going from jungle the first 3 weeks and now going back to support. Junk has played mostly all support in Rivals League Split 1, so um, making their support debut right here in the middle of the pack.
Ogmilio look disgusting.
Always does, right?
Yeah, always does.
Yeah, I mean, of course, if you're paired with one of the best AD carries, then naturally your support has to be the reason that your AD carry is doing so well. So, yeah, if you have a hyper carry playstyle AD carry on your team, yeah, pull out some enchanters and see what happens, and pull out the Milio Lulu, and your AD carry pops off. So, uh, some could argue 4 might even be too low, but that's okay. Poodle gonna jump back up from what 5 or 6 last week. I got a lot of hate mail on that one. Uh, that's okay. Look, last week was a rough one, but we said it was a potential anomaly. Bounce back in this week 4 to look good. Another Emilio, and then the Nami was really the one that made Poodle jump back up. Looked really good on the 1-1-18 Nami paired with the Jinx.
I think the match I'm looking forward to the most this next week is BLM versus Omega, because I think those are two teams that match pretty well into each other. It'll be interesting to see what ultimately ends up happening. So there is a chance, depending on how that last week goes, if Poodle climbs up even further. Um, yeah, like I said, they're not boring, but these are kind of like expected support power rankings for me. I think there's not very much spice going on, like you said. Rogue Gorilla being at 7, heading into the last week of the regular season. Not what we expected from Elysium. I do think that the level of play is a lot higher than what we had in Split 1, which is a good thing. Um, but it seems to be a rough adaptation for some of the members over there.
True.
All
True.
right. Anything else for support before
Yeah,
we
just
move
quick little
on?
love. Just because it's boring doesn't mean we can't give a little shout out to the number 1 and number 2
No,
back
no,
to
yeah,
back
for sure.
weeks support. Sports always slept on. We know both of these supports play. I think they play 4 games of tank. Let me see. I know there's at least 3 of them. Now we have an enchanter. Okay, so we saw Seraphine. Don't see too many Seraphine supports as of late. So got the Seraphine from Tiny Fist of Fury, and then the Alistar, and then I believe it was Braum and Taric for Death Knight. So both of them having themselves a week. Uh, I think the 1 and 2 are really really close with Poodle right on the heels of them, but Death Knight and Tiny Fist of Fury, staples for their teams in the bot lane. Going to be overlooked every week, just kind of is the nature of the support. But yeah, now we can move on to whatever other
Now we
boring
can
role
move
we
on.
have. What, jungle or mid?
Yeah, jungle or mid. Some might say the most important positions.
Some say.
Some say. Some say so that's support. Everybody knows it's not AD carry though. Mid it is. Your boy Tuna. All right, mid lane power rankings are a go. Stealthy and Dion Sword, you guys relate?
Too slow.
All right, last week was Zane at 8. This week is Caden. Number 7, Millie Bobby Brown. It was Millie Bobby Brown last week. This time it is Kittens falling from number 5. Outrage falling from 4 to 6. Millie Bobby Brown rising to 5. Storm dropping 1 spot to 4. Concrete rising all the way from 6 to 3. Drachenrich remaining number 2. And then Salosin at number 1. Uh, Less boring than support. Some might say, why did Concrete, rise so much? 4 spots.
Uh,
And then our boy Millie Bobby Brown can't figure out where to put that guy. I think he's been as high as number 2 or 3, and then as low as number 7 or 8.
yeah,
So
one of the biggest ranges, I guess. I guess we'll say.
yeah,
I think for concrete and maybe a trend for the OG squad is they had a really rough looking week last week, and so a bunch of people fell. And kind of as expected that they were going to bounce back in week 4, and they did. So most of the people, players on that roster, uh, had a decent amount of bouncing around. So he's going to go back up to 3. I mean, 6-1 and 2 on the Vel'Koz. Don't see too many Vel'Kozes. And then really the 9 and 2 Victor in the mid lane, that late game carry, solidifying their win against JRBB. So Concrete, I feel like is justified. You could just say he had one off week, and then yeah, Millie Bobby Brown is just kind of the hot and cold situation.
Yeah, I mean, I will say I've liked the expanded champion pool. Looked really good on the Aurora. The Fizz didn't have as much success. Stank on the Twitch kind of made up for it, as well as Tyler Durden on the Talon. But seeing him pilot a meta champion like Aurora is really good.
Yeah, I think mid of the pack feels fine. I think
Yeah,
really the only two that have kind of solidified their spots, I'd say, is 1 and 2. I think it'd be
yeah.
tough for anybody to crack that 1-2. And then I don't know. I mean, 3 to 6 is kind of up for grabs. But Concrete,
I
I
would
think,
say
pretty close.
I feel like Concrete. We talked about mid before. I think we had these exact same conversation a couple weeks ago. Concrete seems like a 1B. Like if Sailor and Drakenrich are like 1A tier, Concrete seems like 1B, and then 4, 5, and 6 seem a little bit more hot and cold. Concrete, of course, had that one really bad week against the Patriots, but other than that, has been one of the more consistent mids, in my opinion. And I think consistency is key for a lot of these games. Not to say that he can't have another bad week. It just seems like um, just slightly below Salo and Drakenrich, and then slightly above everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think I think this week 4-5 was kind of like a coin toss. Um, Storm, of course, didn't play last week, and then Millie Bobby was lower on the list last week, so they kind
Mm-hmm.
of met in the middle type thing. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I think Storm had some good plays, some good some catch outs on Salo, but really outside of a few instances, didn't really have the best of weeks. What was it? The Victor against the Syndra that really popped off, and then the Annie had some of those catch out plays. So not like a terrible week, just kind of a really a non-factor in what was a rough week for ELY. And then Millie Bobby, yeah, like you said, looked really good on that Aurora. So I could be swayed to say 4-5 could maybe be swapped. 6 Outrage. I expected Outrage to be, I'm gonna be honest, in the top 4 all split. I thought so. Now there's still time to
You
end
thought?
in that top 4. I guess I thought that about the whole team, huh?
Yeah.
So maybe it's the overall trend. Of course, he's been playing some Galio, so some of that tank duty, the utility, and then got put on the Annie. And both games, you could say, a little rough, but maybe that's just
I mean,
Orca's all around for right now.
I think that's Orcas all around because we talked about the rotating door for jungle the last 3 weeks. This is a team that just doesn't feel like it has an identity, if that makes sense. Like BLM seems like a team where they'll draft strong lanes. Stealthy will try to path for himself. They'll group up in team fights around objectives. They'll just out team fight you. The Patriots, uh, a lot of 4-1 or 1-3-1. Omega, kind of the same realm as BLM. It's like we're gonna pick a scaling bot, a scaling mid. We'll have a high variance top lane. If he gets going, we'll just play hard top side, let our mid and bot scale. Elysium and Orcas to me seem like the two teams that have, you know, average to upper shelf talent. They just it doesn't seem like they know what they want to do or like how they want to play. Because it's been a couple weeks for both of those squads where if you like compare the team compositions week to week to week, you would think it would be like 15 different players playing instead of the same 4 or 5.
Yeah, concur, agree. I guess the other people we haven't hit on, I guess Kachao overall, kind of all in the same boat of maybe I overreacted a little bit last week, uh, on the hype train of what could be. So Kitten's gonna fall back down towards that middle to bottom tier, uh, and then the top 2. If you flipped them, I wouldn't be totally upset. I went back and forth on which one felt more correct. I think Salo at 1. I think again, right? It was like this last week. Um,
Mhm.
Makes the most sense. He hard carried that game too. Uh, I think Salo's ceiling is the highest out of all the mid laners. I think Drakenrich is better maybe um, more consistently. And so it's maybe what does your team need and maybe personal preference of you want a mid laner that's always going to do well and
Yeah,
solid in that mid lane, or do you need a mid laner that's at least one game every series is going to hard pop off. So maybe just pick your poison on that one. So I think 1 and 2 is super close, but that's how it landed.
I
Salo
think
1, Draken 2.
yeah, it really just depends on like what you value. I think for Salo, for better for worse, the Patriots kind of need to have him do well. We saw in their series against BLM when Drakenrich was able to shut him down, just how bad the Patriots look when they don't get mid lane pressure, right? Drakenrich, on the other hand, he's one of the few mids that you give him a counter pick and it actually looks like a counter pick, right? He's up, 20 CS, a couple solo kills, and the opposing mid laner just looks giga useless. That and when he's not getting the counter pick matchups, he's stable. He's stable in laning and he's making plays with stealthy. So it depends on what you value. Like I see what you're saying with Salo, probably the higher ceiling and the greater carry potential. But he's kind of in the vein of the Millie Bobby Browns of the world where sometimes can get a little bit low, and those lows hurt the team overall. Drakenrich doesn't really do that. His ceiling, or sorry, his floor is probably higher than Salo's floor, but I think his ceiling is probably lower than Salo's ceiling. So a lot more variance for the Patriots mid laner.
True. I agree.
All
Last but
right,
not least,
last but not least, jungle.
jungle. Is that even a real role? Like, has no impact on the game.
Some were saying that jungle needs to go the wayside. Bring back 2-1-2. Um. Oh shoot, I don't have jungle pulled up.
Mm, slacking. Do we
It's
have
it's
any?
tough because we do them in different orders every time. All right, jungle was second last time. Um. Do we have any what?
I was seeing if we had any like subs or whatnot, but I think it's just maybe JRBB swapped around and then Gabriel Leo swapped from top. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So JRBB number 8 once again. Last week was Inferno SK. This week Pandorum. Key falls from 6 to 7. 8,000 falls from 5 to 6. Ti Romeo falls from 3 to 5. Gabriel Leo holds the spot at 4. Last week was Nasian at 4. And then the biggest riser of the week, Jonikis, was number 7 last week. Tyler Durden all the way up to number 3 for Juice Box Gang. And then Eyesight and I'm Stealthy come in at 2 and 1, same as last week.
Yeah, so I'd say similar. We'll just go similar trend for 8 and 7. Uh,
Yep.
JRBV is holding down the 8 spot. Unfortunately, going winless, um, swapping around people, had the FF, all that fun stuff. Uh, Key,
It's tough when you're losing every game and your players aren't really bright spots for your team. It's tough. It's tough.
true, 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 true. I mean the Pantheon looked okay. The Skarner is just kind of maybe a tank, but if your team's behind and you're Skarner jungle, I feel like your stats are gonna look a little rough. So we're gonna hold down that 8 spot. Key um, looked really good last week. Um, this week, if I can find it again, um, had that Poppy. I mean, I like the Poppy pick into J4. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he played the same champs. Was it Poppy Mordekaiser last time? I don't remember. But Mordekaiser looked solid once again. I just don't think there was a way to justify Key this week jumping any of the people ahead of him. So I don't think Key played terrible by any means. It's just a rough week for the team overall and the people right above them. A little bit more justification for them.
Yeah. 8,000, dropping a spot. We saw a couple people pilot Dr. Mundo Jungle. Um, looked okay on it. Went 4-5-8. Also picked up the win on the Poppy. I don't know, 8,000 this week, kind of a more supportive role. Ti Romeo, despite the loss, looked pretty good. I played Volibear. Actually played Volibear yesterday in a normals. Dropped 24 kills. That champ seems busted for anybody that is looking for jungler champs to pick up. Uh, it looked good on that one. The Maokai left a little bit to be desired, but the team overall was struggling. I wouldn't be opposed to having 8,000 at 5, Ti Romeo at 6.
True.
Um, Gabriel Leo, I think this is probably Leo's position. There's been a couple times where he was top. It just didn't look comfortable in lane. Got to lock in two very different champions. The Maokai game 1 went 4-5-9. They lost, but was doing their job. And then had a really nice game on Wukong in the loss. Him and Narvo were kind of like the only two players really doing anything. Red Face Beast, of course, was kind of fighting for his life down bot lane, and then but I don't know what their plan is for jungle. I don't know if Gabriel Leo's this was a one-time thing, he's going back top, but I think he looks a lot more comfortable in jungle.
Yeah, it might just depend on their sub situation. I know a lot of teams, despite of how certain players do whenever you bring in a sub or swap around people, a lot of times they just revert. Whenever their starters are back, they just revert back to their starting lineup. So I wouldn't be surprised Gabriel Leo goes back to top lane. But yeah, you could, from a spectator standpoint, definitely make the argument maybe keep Narva in top and Gabriel Leo jungle. I think Gabriel Leo was the one that hard popped off top lane week 1. But outside of that, on that the Darius performance, right?
Gabriel, no,
Oh,
no,
he
Gabriel
got popped
Leo.
off on.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. He was involved. I knew he was involved one way or the other. My
He was
bad.
involved. That's true.
Okay, he was there. Okay, so disregard all that. But yeah, the Wukong I think is the real reason that he jumped up to 4, slightly above
Yeah.
that 5-6, and I agree 5-6 could definitely be swapped. Either way, Tyler Durden, similar with Gabriel, it's always tough to rank the people that come in as subs or role swaps. But I mean, Tyler, I feel like played really well. What was it? Was it 2? Okay, it was Talon and J4, right?
J4 and Talon.
So Gave, didn't take a lot of the kills. Had the most assists at 21 on the J4. A lot of times, those type of junglers, you'll see the J4 really with like 10 kills and 10 assists. So only kept it to 4 and the 21 assists gave his carries all the kills there, and then the Talon caught parts of the Talon game and looked solid there. Don't see Talon very often in competitive play, so maybe he got a couple style points there just for playing the champion.
I'm trying to think. I think Talon, the last time we saw him competitive play was like Worlds. Was it 2021 when Yumi was giga busted? And so you would go Talon jungle. And then in the mid game, you just have Talon Yumi running around the map, just popping people and never taking damage. That was probably the last time we saw Talon. So it was cool to see again. I really like their comp in game 1 though.
Yeah.
The Orange Jarvan, Aurora, and then Cogmelia. That's pretty nice.
Write that down.
Write that down.
Top 2 not gonna change. You can maybe make the argument they could swap. I don't know. Both of those words combined. I don't know. It's the nature of if you're in the number 1 spot, your team's winning and you're playing well. It's really tough to get jumped, and so it's really like a 1A 1B type situation where they're really close. And I think if Tyler had played jungle all split, maybe he'd be right there on the heels of them. But both of them had a solid week. Eyesight played Zinzao and Mumu. How good's my memory? I mean,
Yep.
stat wise, nothing too crazy. But that was the stream series and had a lot of impact, especially on that Amumu. A staple there did have had the Maokai taken away, so that's why I maybe gave Romeo the nod at 5 because he was willing to take away that champ. So sometimes it's the out of game stuff, But no, Eyesight looked good. Both of those, just nothing too crazy. At least not enough to justify jumping the number 1 spot. And I'm Stealthy to another J4. Nothing too crazy. And then the Udyr jungle, which we don't see too often as of late. But
Stealthy Udyr though, last split, styled
true.
on styled on, was it EV and um oh, why am I spacing on the mid laner's name? Mid laner Ari
Solram?
got the solo kill on top side. I'm a big fan of Stealthy's Udyr whenever he locks it in.
True. I expect those two to probably stay as the top two. I think that was what similar with mid lane, so it'll be tough to crack the top two. And if
Mm-hmm.
they do see each other in finals once again, it'll be a super great matchup to watch. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. We'll see.
Alrighty. Team power rankings and then question of the day.
Ooh.
Uh Speaking of boring lists, this is probably one of the most boring team
What
power
you
rankings
mean?
we've
What
put
you
together.
mean? This obviously is not the
Uh,
same as the standings in theory, but it's
in theory, but
some
it's
say
pretty
it's
dang
some
close.
say it's pretty close.
Yeah, it's Brom Lives Matter, Patriots, the rest of my division, and the rest of yours. So, I mean, what are the what are the big talking points here that you want to discuss? It seems pretty clear cut and dry heading into this last week. This last week could shake these up quite a bit, but as it stands now, definitely makes the most sense.
Yeah, I think eight's clear. 6 and 7, unfortunately, I feel correct from my bias. Talking the 3 4 5 is maybe the one. Well, maybe 6 7. You could say should that be flipped or not? And then 3 4 5 is probably the ones where you can make the argument of I don't know. Omega should be. How was Omega right next to Patriots when they got stomped by Patriots? Maybe they should be 5. Yeah, but outside of that series, you call that an off week, and other than that, it looked really good. So 3 makes most sense. Uh, EOY at 4. Do we think they're better than Juicebox? Obviously, we're gonna see this upcoming week. They didn't look the best this last week, but Juicebox outside of this last week has looked really rough. Uh,
Mhm.
so I think just kind of that middle pack is an interesting talking point. And then obviously the 1 2, Brahms going to get the nod. I mean, they're undefeated and they took the
Yeah,
win over Patriots. So even if it was only week one, I don't see how you would justify anybody jumping BLM unless BLM loses.
I feel like the team power rankings, there's like three tiers. There's BLM and Patriots. There's the middle four, and then there's the bottom two. Now maybe that's a little bit harsh for Gachao, considering I think they still have the same record as or they're
Orcas,
one.
they're actually
Yeah,
better game record, I think, than Orcas, but so I
yeah.
don't
It
know.
just seems like on paper, um, those are kind of like the three tiers that make the most sense. You can argue about where people should be in the middle tier, but it is pretty clear Bromwise Matter definitely deserved number one over the Patriots. They do have the head to head, and then the bottom 7/8, Kachow has a win. JRBB does not. But those middle four are where things kind of get interesting. Like you said, Patriots beat the snot out of Omega, but they're still at three. Um, I would say like it's clear number one and two are BLM and Patriots. I'm of the opinion it's the clear number three of Omega. You look at the next three on the list: Elysium, Juicebox Gang, and Orcas. Just are very, very shaky. They're very hot, very cold. I would say the highest high that we've seen for those three teams is Juicebox Gang, and that came this last week. That's probably the best that any one of
True.
those three teams has played. Um, so we're kind of giving the benefit of the doubt to some players of Elysium that had success in Split One. But I wouldn't be surprised if Juicebox Gang ultimately end up winning that series this week and coming in at number four. But yeah, 4, 5, and 6, they're they're kind of in the right spot. They're definitely right in there in the middle. I just one of them has to separate themselves from the other two, for me.
Yeah, and we'll get to see. We'll get to see. I guess good segue into predictions. Do I
Yeah,
have a
we don't have a prediction screen. You just
no?
throw
But
back
don't I
the
have a? So what?
throw back. Um, we got.
I already forgot who's playing who. No.
Yeah, I forgot who's
Where
playing
do you
who.
want to start? bottom up, top down,
Uh, let's go.
schedule,
Let's go
either
top
one.
down. I think top down makes the most sense because that last one will be interesting to talk about. Brawl Lives Matter versus Omega Gaming. I would gander that both of us are thinking Brawl Lives Matter is favorite. I did say previously in the stream, I think both of these teams match up rather well into each other. I think they both kind of have similar play styles. I just think when you look at the two teams and how they have played, Brawl Lives Matter, they kind of operate with that like machine mentality where they're very scripted in their map movements and what they're trying to do. Omega Gaming a little bit more sloppy than them, so I'm gonna give Brawl Lives Matter another 2-1. Last time I thought it was gonna go 3 games, they made the 2-0 sweep happen, but um, just for the sake of it being close, I want Omega to have a good series, but I think Brawl Lives Matter comes out 2-1.
Okay. Originally, I was gonna say I'm gonna rock with BLM. They're on a hot streak. Give them the quick 2-0 nod. But agreed, these two teams match up really well. Um, and so I think that's what was tough. Maybe watching the Omega versus Patriots series, they match up really interestingly. Whereas BLM and OG are constructed fairly similarly, in a lot of ways at least. So I can see
Mm-hmm.
it being close, but I'm going to say a close 2 games. I'm going to rock with BLM 2-0, but it will be close, I think.
All right. Just for the sake of us not copying each other, you take the next one and do the prediction first.
That means I got to pick it up. Okay, who is it?
Elysium
I'm sorry, I blind
versus
everybody.
JBG.
Elysium versus JBG. If JBG rocks that same lineup, which obviously it's the same players, but I like Tyler on a really playmaking, potentially carry jungler, and Jonas can play a solid support role. So if they rock that lineup, I'm gonna go Juicebox with. You can maybe call it an upset. I don't know. I guess they're kind of tied. I'd go Juicebox 2-1. If they go back to Jonas jungle, Tyler Darden support, I'm gonna rock with Elysium 2-1. So I'm gonna make up in my mind that they're gonna go the same lineup, and so I'll go Juicebox 2-1 with Tyler in the jungle.
It's a bold move for you to make up their mind or make up your mind because I don't think JBG ever
Oh
does
yeah,
that
no, it's a coin
until
toss.
right before they play their game. I will say I think Juicebox Gang has showed the higher potential between these two teams. Elysium just seems kind of lost right now. I think they definitely have the potential to be a playoff team. I don't know if they're going to be able to put together a solid plan with 1 week. And in a high pressure situation, I think Juicebox Gang, their personalities actually kind of tend to have better performances because I don't think they take themselves too seriously. Of course, they want to win, but you got some jokesters over there. So despite the circumstances, I think they'll keep level heads. They'll play their game. I'm gonna go Juicebox Gang 2-0. Um,
Okay.
but we'll see. I mean, it depends on, like you said, who shows up. Patriots versus Orcas. Outside of the loss Patriots suffered in the opener, it's been more of the same from the split one uh, championship winners. Orcas like Elysium, you can kind of say they don't really know what they're doing. They have a revolving door of junglers come through the last 3 weeks. Um, I'm not sure what their game plan is going to be. I know what the game plan for the Patriots is going to be because it's the same one week in and week out. I'm going to go Patriots 2-0.
Okay. I'm tempted to say 2-1 for Patriots, but it would just be because Patriots have the first seed regardless of how the series goes.
Mm-hmm.
So they might get a little too loose in trying some stuff. Maybe not. I assume most teams don't want to dive too deep into the bag. They can save some stuff for playoffs. Um, whereas Orcas are really to uh, lock in a playoff spot for sure. Needs to take at least 1 game away. Granted, they could lose 0-2 and still make the playoffs depending on how the other series goes, but blah, blah, blah. So, still going to rock Patriots 2-0, but I think that second game is gonna be a close one because they might get a little too spicy in draft.
Okay. Yeah, it'd be interesting because if the Patriots lose, then they have a bye week. They'll be coming off a loss in semifinals. So I don't think that's what they want to happen, but I could definitely
Yeah, it's risky.
see it happening. Okay, last but not least, Chat Esports versus Jolly Rogers Broadside Buccaneers. JRBB has to win this match if they want a chance at the playoffs. Kachow, uh, I guess they can lose and still have a potential possibility of getting in,
Yeah,
depending.
it just wouldn't be up to them though. Yeah,
It wouldn't be up to them. So both of these teams, so they win, they're in. Uh, like I said earlier, Jolly Rogers hasn't won a game. They've had a FF series. Who knows who's gonna play? It's really hard to take a bet like that. I'm gonna go Kachow 2-1. I think Jolly Rogers they'll pull off an upset and pick up a game, and ride off ride off into the off season on a high. But I just don't think they have enough in them to pull off a match upset.
okay. Yeah, I mean both teams playing for the playoff spot. All you have to do is make playoffs, and then you're chilling from there, right? So, the hardest thing to do is just to make playoffs. So both teams have it completely up to them. I'm gonna rock with the Kachow 2-0, and because it just seems like we're gonna have a team that's gonna go completely undefeated, and a team that's gonna go completely winless, at least as far as matches. So, um, unfortunately, JRBB, I don't know if they've even played the same roster in back-to-back weeks. Um, that inconsistency I think is tough on a lot of the low to mid elo teams. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm gonna rock Kachow, that they end the regular season on a win, and go into playoffs to face probably the Orcas. So we'll see.
All right. There you have your predictions. Question of the day. I was thinking of what might be a fun one heading into the final regular season matchup. Uh, Came up with this one. Who are the actual contenders? We're talking about playoffs a lot. 6 teams of the 10 that are participating will. Wait. Eight?
Six
Eight.
of the eight.
6 teams of the 8 that are participating will make the playoffs. We could be honest with ourselves. Not all of those 6 are going to be made the same. CB, who do you have as actual contenders for a championship here in Split 2?
So we're talking teams that I think could realistically win it all.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, two.
Too
I'll start us
obvious.
off.
Okay, start us off with
Two
two.
obvious ones.
Okay.
I'll start us off with the 2 obvious ones, and we'll jump into the more interesting things. It's probably the expectation that the Patriots and BLM are going to have a bye week straight into the semifinals. They've looked like the 2 cleanest teams, and probably the 2 strongest laning teams as well, top to bottom. So I think it's pretty easy to say both of those are contenders. The things that get interesting are like potentially who can upset those 2 teams of the 4 that have to play quarters. Now, of course, we don't know who's making quarters quite yet, but we might have a good idea of who we think we'll see there.
Yep. So those 2 for sure. I'm gonna say Omega Gaming. I'm gonna say Juicebox Gang.
Okay.
And the reluctant, if I was to pick 5, I want to go Orcas.
Okay.
That's high
So,
hopes. That's high hopes. But hear me out.
yeah.
Hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Orcas, I'd say a good chance they make playoffs. Now there's definitely a chance they don't, but good chance they do. And if they do,
Okay.
they're gonna be playing JRBB or Kachow.
Hmm.
I, of course, biased because I picked them high. Expect them to win that, so they're gonna, in theory, made up. They're gonna make semis. The
Yeah.
reason that the obvious one that I left out, Elysium, they essentially have to run the gauntlet. They have to beat
Yeah.
Juicebox, who's coming off of their best win of the split, and then turn around and probably play Omega, and then play BLM, and then play, let's say, Patriots. So they have
Hmm.
to run the gauntlet, and I think that's a tough one for how their kind of average split has been going. Now, can they turn it around?
Yeah.
Is it impossible? No, but I think Orca's having the better route uh, to finals. I'd give them a little bit of a nod. So
Yeah, I I think the Orcas won the logic tracks, right? Like if they do make playoffs, they have basically the Patriots to get through on their side of the bracket, and then once they're in finals, I mean that's kind of like the two toughest teams for them. Like you said, Elysium, they'd have to go against Omega, and then BLM, and then you know most likely the Patriots, which is that's a grueling gauntlet for any team. Uh, I want to talk about Juicebox Gang a little bit more. You threw them in there, didn't really mention them after that.
oh, you caught that? Oh,
What? Yeah. What do you really? I mean, they're kind of the same spot as Elysium. Do you just think they have, a higher skill ceiling, or what kind of?
yeah. I think it's the ceiling. I think their ceiling
Okay.
is right up there in like the third best team is like their ceiling um,
Okay.
right now. Obviously, that's kind of contradictory to going to playoffs, but anybody can win a series if they're close enough in skill. Um, and so I think Juicebox could do it. Maybe I'm pulling a Kachow and riding their success last week a little too high, but
We'll see.
we'll see. They've been kind of a middle pack team, and they looked really good this last week. Um, and if they make the playoffs, which would be taking out Elysium, they'd be riding back-to-back wins, and so I think that would be enough momentum to get them potentially into playoffs. Still have to run the gauntlet, Elysium, OG, and or BLM, and then potentially Patriots. So, but I think it's not impossible. We'll see. Maybe I just like their logo. I don't know.
Hmm. All right, we're gonna throw it to a quick ad break. That was the end of the stream. If you want to stick around and support us, watch the ads, and then I think we're gonna probably raid Ember Esports. I was thinking about doing Titan, but I think their series is over. So
We'll flip a coin.
we want you guys watching. We'll watch you. Yeah, I want you guys watching some league action. Who knows? But thanks for watching, and we will be back on Sunday.